Captain Dae-ho Kim walked through the massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber. The doors were so big that 50 humans could walk through them side by side. Everything in this place was built to make visitors feel small and weak. The chamber was like a giant bowl turned upside down. Thousands of seats filled the curved walls, going up and up until they disappeared in the shadows. Strange creatures sat in those seats. Some looked like giant insects. Others were made of what seemed like living rock. A few glowed with their own light. Dae-ho had seen pictures, but being here was different. The air smelled wrong. It was too clean, like a hospital, but with hints of things he could not name. The gravity was lighter than Earth's, making him feel like he might float away. Dr. Hyejin Park walked beside him. She was the smartest person Dae-ho knew, but even she looked nervous. Her hands shook a little as she carried her datapad. "Remember," she whispered, "we are the first humans to ever stand here. Everything we do today will be remembered forever." Dae-ho nodded. He had been a soldier before becoming a diplomat. He knew how to stay calm when others wanted him to be afraid. But this was harder than any battle he had fought. The other humans in their group stayed close together. They were the best Earth had to offer. Scientists, diplomats, military leaders. But here they looked like children lost in a world built for giants. A deep voice filled the chamber. It came from everywhere at once, speaking in perfect English. "The humans will approach the center." They walked down a long path that led to the middle of the chamber. With each step, Dae-ho felt thousands of alien eyes watching him. Some of those eyes were bigger than his head. Others were so small he could barely see them. At the center of the chamber stood a raised platform. On top of it sat the most frightening creature Dae-ho had ever seen. Counselor Prime Vexithara was as tall as 3 humans standing on each other's shoulders. Her skin looked like black metal. 6 arms moved slowly as she sorted through papers. Her face had no nose, just 2 holes where a nose should be. Her eyes were like pools of liquid silver. "Humans of the 3rd planet of the star you call Sol," Vexithara said. Her voice was like the sound of grinding metal. "You stand before the Galactic Council to receive your integration mandate." Dae-ho stepped forward. "We are honored to be here, Counselor Prime." "Honor is not required," Vexithara replied. "Only understanding. For 3,000 years, the Galactic Council has kept peace among the stars. We have done this through a simple system. New species that join our galaxy must contribute to the greater good." She stood up. Her full height made Dae-ho's neck hurt just to look at her. "Your species has been evaluated. Your planet has resources we need. Your people have skills we can use. Therefore, your tribute has been decided." A hologram appeared in the air above them. It showed Earth spinning slowly, with numbers and symbols floating around it. "First," Vexithara said, 40% of your rare Earth metals will be delivered to Council stations every Earth year. These metals are needed for our ships and technology." Dr. Park made a small sound behind him. Dae-ho knew what she was thinking. 40% of their rare Earth metals would cripple Earth's technology. "Second," Vexithara continued, "you will share all of your technology with the Council. This includes your weapons, your computers, and your medical knowledge. Nothing can be kept secret." Dae-ho felt his heart beating faster. Earth's military technology was their only real defense. "Third," Vexithara said, and her silver eyes seemed to glow brighter, 10 million of your people will be relocated to Council worlds. They will work in our factories and mines. They will be well treated and fed. This is not slavery. This is service to the greater good." The chamber became completely silent. Even the strange humming sounds that came from some of the alien machines stopped. Dae-ho stared at the Counselor Prime. 10 million people. That was more than the population of many countries. They wanted to take 10 million humans and make them work on alien worlds. "These terms are not negotiable," Vexithara said. "Every species that has joined our galaxy has accepted similar tributes. Some gave more, some gave less, but all gave something. This is the price of peace and protection." She sat back down, her 6 arms folding in front of her. "The alternative is simple. Species that refuse integration are considered hostile. Hostile species are pacified. This means we destroy their ability to travel between stars. We destroy their advanced technology. We leave them alone on their homeworlds until they learn to be civilized." More holograms appeared. They showed dead worlds. Cities turned to glass. Oceans that glowed with strange colors. Ships floating in space broken and empty. 17 species have chosen hostility over integration, Vexithara said. They are all gone now. Not dead, but reduced. They live simple lives on their home worlds. They are no longer a danger to galactic peace. Deho looked at the images. Somewhere in those dead cities had lived billions of beings. People with families, dreams, hopes, all gone because they said no to the Council. However, Vexthera continued, most species are wiser. They understand that individual freedom must sometimes be sacrificed for universal peace. They accept integration. They prosper. They become part of something greater than themselves. She gestured to the thousands of aliens in the chamber. All of these species once stood where you stand now. All of them made the correct choice. Now they are our partners in keeping the galaxy safe and ordered. Deho felt Dr. Park touch his arm gently. She was trying to give him strength. You have heard your terms, Vexthera said. The Council expects your answer within one planetary rotation of your home world. That is, 24 of your hours. This should be enough time for your leaders to understand reality. The other aliens in the chamber began to make sounds. Some seemed like laughter. Others sounded like the grinding of metal on stone. They had all been through this. They knew how it would end. Counselor Prime, Deho said, his voice steady despite the fear in his heart. This decision affects all of humanity. Our leaders need time to discuss and consider. May we have 3 of our days to provide an answer? The chamber became silent again. Several aliens made shocked sounds. Apparently, no species had ever asked for more time before. Vexithara's silver eyes stared at Deho for a long moment. 3 rotations, she said finally. Very well. But understand, human, that delay will not change the terms. The Council's decision is final. Use your extra time wisely. Study the fate of the 17 species that chose poorly. Learn from their mistakes. She waved one of her 6 hands. The humans are dismissed. Return here in 3 rotations with your answer. The Council will be waiting. As they walked back through the massive doors, Deho could hear the aliens talking among themselves. Some sounded amused. Others seemed curious. None sounded worried. They all knew how this story would end. They had all made the same choice when their time came. They had all said yes to the Council's demands. But as Captain Deho Kim left the Galactic Council chamber, he was already thinking about Earth. He was thinking about 10 million human faces. He was thinking about freedom and what it was worth. The aliens in the chamber had no idea what humans were capable of when their backs were against the wall. The secure conference room beneath the United Nations building in New York had never held a meeting like this one. Every major world leader sat around the curved table, their faces lit by holographic displays showing the Galactic Council's demands. Director Bo Young Choi looked tired. She had not slept since Captain Deho Kim's report arrived from the Council station. The numbers floating in the air above the table seemed to mock her. 40% of Earth's rare metals, all human technology, 10 million people. Let me make sure I understand this correctly, said President Martinez of the Americas Union. They want nearly half our mining output, every piece of advanced technology we have ever created, and 10 million of our citizens to work on alien worlds. That is correct, Captain Kim replied through the quantum link from his ship, and they made it very clear that these terms cannot be changed. We either accept or face what they call pacification. The Prime Minister of the European Federation leaned forward. Captain, you saw the images they showed you. Those dead worlds. Do we have any reason to believe they were not destroyed by the Council? Kim was quiet for a moment. The images were real. Those civilizations are gone, but something felt wrong about how they presented them. They seemed almost proud of the destruction. Dr. So-Young Nam, head of Earth's Quantum Research Division, had been studying data feeds during the entire meeting. She finally looked up from her tablet. I need to share something with all of you, she said. For the past 6 months, we have been monitoring deep space communications. What we found might change how we think about this situation. She activated new displays. Charts and graphs filled the air, showing communication patterns across the galaxy. The Galactic Council presents itself as a peaceful organization that maintains order, Dr. Nam continued. But their own communications tell a different story. We have intercepted thousands of messages between Council ships and stations. What kind of messages? Asked Chancellor Weber of the German states. Complaints. Reports of unrest. Request for more tribute ships to patrol rebellious sectors. Dr. Nam highlighted sections of her data. The galaxy is not as peaceful as they pretend. Dozens of species are unhappy with Council rule. Some have tried small rebellions that were quickly crushed. Director Choi stood up and walked to the window overlooking the city. Millions of people went about their daily lives, unaware that their future was being decided in this room. What you are telling us is that the Council rules through fear, not legitimate authority, she said. Exactly, Dr. Nam replied. But there is more. We have also been developing new technologies that the Council does not know about. Our quantum communication systems can connect every human ship and colony instantly. Our new engines can move ships in ways that break traditional physics. Admiral Sungmin Lee, commander of Earth's small space fleet, looked interested for the first time since the meeting began. What are you saying, Doctor? I am saying we are not as helpless as we appear. Our technology is different from theirs. Where they build massive ships designed to intimidate, we have built small, fast vessels that can appear and disappear using quantum mechanics. Can we win a war against them? Asked Prime Minister Chen of the Asian Coalition. Dr. Nam shook her head. Probably not. They have ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. They have more ships, more weapons, more experience. But we might be able to make victory very expensive for them. And what good would that do? President Martinez asked. If we all die fighting, how does that help humanity? Captain Kim's voice came through the speakers. It helps because other species will see us fight. For 3,000 years, every species has surrendered without a real battle. If we show them that the Council can be hurt, maybe others will find the courage to resist. The room fell silent as everyone considered this. You are talking about starting a galactic revolution, said Chancellor Weber. Maybe, Kim replied. Or maybe I am talking about reminding the galaxy what freedom looks like. Dr. Nam activated another display. This one showed alien communication networks across nearby star systems. There is something else you should know, she said. Since news of our situation began spreading, we have detected unusual activity in alien communications. Species that have not talked to each other in centuries are suddenly exchanging messages. What are they saying? Director Choi asked. They are talking about us, about our meeting with the Council, about what we might do. Dr. Nam smiled slightly. Some of them seem hopeful. Prime Minister Okafor of the African Union had been quiet throughout the meeting. Now she spoke for the first time. I have been thinking about my grandmother, she said. She lived during the wars of independence in the old countries. She used to tell me that freedom is not something you can trade away, even for safety. Once you give it up, it is almost impossible to get back. But if we fight, billions of people could die, President Martinez pointed out. And if we surrender, billions of people will live as slaves, Okafor replied. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. The Council's tribute demands will grow. Our children will grow up knowing that humans are a conquered species. Admiral, Lee stood up and walked to the holographic display showing Earth's orbital defenses have been studying the Council's military tactics, he said. They rely on intimidation and overwhelming force. Their ships are huge, but they move slowly. Their weapons are powerful, but designed to destroy planets, not fight other ships. What does that tell us? Director Choi asked. It tells us they have not fought a real war in a very long time. They are used to enemies who give up before the fighting starts. Dr. Nam added more data to the displays. Our intelligence suggests that many Council species were conquered so long ago, they have forgotten they ever had armies. Some have never seen actual combat. They pay their tribute and live quiet lives under Council protection. Protection from what? Asked Prime Minister Chen. From each other, supposedly, but also from the memory of what they used to be. Captain Kim's voice came through the speakers again. I stood in that Council chamber and looked at hundreds of alien faces. Some looked sad, others looked angry, but many looked curious, like they wanted to see what we would do. You think some of them might support us? Director Choi asked. I think some of them are waiting for someone to remind them that they have choices. The debate continued for hours. Presidents and prime ministers argued about military capabilities, economic consequences, and the survival of the human race. But slowly, a consensus began to emerge. Let me ask you all a simple question, Director Choi finally said. If we accept the Council's terms today, what happens in 50 years when they demand more? What happens in 100 years? Do we keep giving until there is nothing left to give? That is assuming humanity survives to see 50 years if we refuse, President Martinez said. And what kind of survival would that be? Asked Prime Minister Okafor. living on our knees, grateful for whatever scraps the Council allows us to keep. One by one, the world leaders began to speak. The President of Russia spoke about his nation's history of resisting invasion. The Prime Minister of Japan talked about honor and dignity. The Chancellor of Brazil mentioned the price of freedom. When the vote was called, it was unanimous. Every nation, every alliance, every major power on Earth agreed. Humanity would say no to the Galactic Council. Now we need to decide exactly how to deliver our answer, Director Choi said. What do we tell them? Captain Kim spoke from his ship orbiting the Council station. I think we keep it simple. We tell them that humanity values freedom more than safety. We tell them that some things cannot be bought or taken by force. And then, asked Admiral Lee, and then we prepare for war. As the meeting ended, each leader returned to their nations to begin preparations. Factories would be converted to produce weapons and ships. Every human colony would be fortified. The quantum communication network would connect humanity's scattered settlements across the stars. Captain Kim remained on his ship, preparing for his return to the Council chamber. In a few hours, he would stand before creatures that had ruled the galaxy for millennia. He would deliver an answer they had never heard before. Somewhere in the darkness of space, alien ships waited patiently. They had done this hundreds of times before. They expected the usual result. They had no idea that this time everything would be different. The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber opened with a sound like thunder. Captain Daeho Kim walked through them, his footsteps echoing in the enormous space. This time he walked alone. The other human diplomats waited on their ship, ready to leave quickly if things went badly. The chamber was more crowded than before. Word had spread across the galaxy that the humans were giving their answer today. Aliens who rarely attended council meetings had traveled from distant star systems just to watch. Some had come out of curiosity. Others had come to see another species submit to council authority. Kim could feel thousands of eyes watching him as he walked down the long path to the center of the chamber. Some of those eyes belonged to creatures so alien he could not even guess what they were thinking. Others looked almost human, but with small differences that reminded him he was very far from home. The air in the chamber felt thick with expectation. Conversations in dozens of languages created a low buzz that seemed to vibrate through the walls. Kim caught fragments of translated speech as he passed. Another species learns wisdom today. The humans lasted 3 days longer than most. I wonder if they will cry when they surrender. Kim kept his face calm, but inside his heart was beating fast. Every step brought him closer to a moment that would change everything. Not just for humanity, but perhaps for the entire galaxy. Counselor Prime Vexithara sat on her raised platform like a statue made of black metal. Her 6 arms were folded across her chest. Her silver eyes followed Kim as he approached the center of the chamber. She looked exactly the same as she had 3 days ago, but somehow she seemed more dangerous now. Human representative, she said, her voice cutting through the noise like a blade. You returned to us after your deliberation period. The chamber became quiet. Even the humming of alien machines seemed to fade away. The Galactic Council is prepared to receive your acceptance of the integration mandate, Vexithara continued. Your species has had time to consider the wisdom of cooperation versus the foolishness of resistance. Kim stopped at the exact center of the chamber, the spot where hundreds of other species had stood over the centuries. The spot where they had all said the same word. Yes. We trust that your leaders have studied the historical records we provided, Vexithara said. The fate of the 17 species who chose hostility should serve as adequate education. Around the chamber, alien representatives leaned forward in their seats. This was always the interesting part. Some species begged. Others tried to negotiate. A few became angry before accepting defeat. But they all ended the same way. Counselor Prime, Kim said, his voice carrying clearly through the vast space. I bring the official response of humanity to the integration mandate. Speak your submission, Vexithara commanded. Kim looked up at the towering figure above him. She was 3 times his height and probably 10 times his weight. Her species had been ruling the galaxy since before humans discovered fire. She represented the combined power of hundreds of worlds and trillions of beings. But Kim did not feel small. He felt something he had not expected. He felt proud. No. The word hung in the air like a physical object. For several seconds, nothing else existed in the chamber but that single syllable. Kim could see Vexithara's silver eyes widen slightly. It was the first expression he had ever seen on her face. "Explain your statement," she said slowly. "Humanity declines the integration mandate," Kim said clearly. "We will not provide tribute. We will not share our technology under threat. We will not send our people to work on your worlds." The silence that followed was broken by sounds from all around the chamber. Some aliens made noises that the translation system interpreted as gasps. Others created sounds that had no human equivalent. A few began talking rapidly to their neighbors. Kim had expected this reaction. But what he had not expected was the look on some of the alien faces. Instead of shock or anger, many seemed interested. A few even looked excited. "You do not understand the gravity of your situation," Vexithara said, her voice growing louder. "Integration is not optional. No species in the history of the galaxy has refused the integration mandate." "Then we are the first," Kim replied simply. Another council member, a creature that looked like a tree made of crystal, floated closer to the central platform. When it spoke, its voice sounded like wind chimes. "Human, perhaps you misunderstand the consequences of your words. Species that refuse integration are classified as hostile. Hostile species face pacification. This means the complete destruction of your spacefaring capabilities." "We understand," Kim said. A third council member joined the conversation. This one resembled a giant jellyfish swimming through the air. Its voice bubbled like water. "Your military forces are insignificant compared to council power. Your technology is primitive. Your ships number in the dozens while ours number in the thousands. Why do you choose certain destruction?" Kim was quiet for a moment, thinking about how to answer. Then he smiled. "Because it is our choice to make." "Choice is an illusion," Vexithara said, standing to her full height. "Order is reality. Peace is maintained through strength. Your childish concepts of freedom and independence lead only to chaos and war." "Maybe," Kim said, "but they are our concepts, and we choose to live by them rather than abandon them." Something was happening in the chamber. Kim could hear it in the conversations around him. Aliens who had been quiet observers were now talking animatedly with each other. Some were standing up, looking around as if seeing the chamber for the first time. In the higher seats, where representatives of younger species sat, a creature made of blue crystal suddenly spoke. "Counselor Prime, I request permission to address the chamber." Vexithara turned her silver gaze toward the crystal being. "You may speak, Representative Haywan of the Zephyr Worlds." The crystal being's body flashed with different colors as she spoke. "What is the legal precedent if a species chooses to support the humans?" The chamber became completely silent again. This was apparently a question that had never been asked before. "Any species that supports hostile action against the Council will be considered hostile themselves," Vexithara replied, her voice like grinding metal. "This has been Council law for 3,000 years. And if a species simply chooses not to participate in enforcement actions?" asked another alien. This one looked like a giant insect with golden wings. "Non-participation in Council security operations is also considered hostile behavior," Vexithara said. More aliens began to stand. Kim counted at least 30 different species rising from their seats around the chamber. "Counselor Prime," said the insect creature, "how many species have asked these questions before today?" "None," Vexithara admitted. "All previous species understood the necessity of Council authority." "Or," said Representative Haywan, her crystal body blazing with light, "no species has reminded them that questions could be asked." Vexithara looked around the chamber with what Kim thought might be concern. For the first time in 3,000 years, the perfectly ordered council meeting was becoming chaotic. "The human integration will proceed as mandated," she announced, her voice booming through the chamber. "The pacification fleet will depart for the Sol system within 1 standard day. Any species that interferes will face identical consequences." She looked down at Kim with her burning silver eyes. "Human, you have condemned your entire species to isolation and death. I hope your pride provides comfort as your worlds burn." Kim looked back at her without fear or anger. "Counselor Prime, for 3,000 years you have maintained power by convincing species they had no choice. Today, humanity has reminded them that they do." He turned to walk away, then paused and looked back at the towering figure on the platform. "Tomorrow, they will remember what that feels like." As Kim walked toward the massive doors, the sounds from the chamber grew louder. Hundreds of alien voices were talking at once. Some sounded angry, others sounded confused, but many sounded like beings who were waking up from a long sleep. Behind him, Vexithara was trying to restore order, but her commands seemed to have less power than before. For the first time in millennia, the Galactic Council was hearing voices they had never expected, the voices of species remembering they could say no. Kim reached the doors and turned back one last time. The chamber was in chaos. Aliens were standing, arguing, questioning. Some were leaving their seats and walking toward the exits. The galaxy had heard humanity's answer, one simple word that meant everything: no. And somewhere in that chaos, other species were learning to say it too. The news spread across the galaxy faster than anyone had expected. Within hours of Captain Kim's simple answer, every species with quantum communication technology knew what had happened. The humans had said no to the Galactic Council. On the crystal world of Zephyr Prime, Commander Taeyoung Jung sat in a room made entirely of living crystal. The walls glowed with soft blue light, responding to the emotions of the beings inside. Right now they were glowing brighter than usual. Across from Jung sat Representative Haiwan, the crystal being who had spoken up in the council chamber. Her body was flashing through colors Jung had never seen before. "Is it true?" Haiwan asked, her voice like music played on glass instruments. "Your species actually refused the integration mandate?" "Yes," Jung replied. "We said no." Haiwan's crystal body blazed with golden light. "In 300 years of Zephyr membership in the council, we have never seen this. We had forgotten such a thing was possible." Jung leaned forward in his chair. "It was always possible. The question is whether it is worth the price." "The price will be terrible," Haiwan said, her light dimming to a worried blue. "The pacification fleet has destroyed every species that has ever resisted council authority." "Maybe," Jung said. "But maybe it is time someone found out how strong they really are." Haiwan was quiet for a long moment. Her crystal body shifted through different shades of blue and green. "There is something I must tell you. Something the council does not want anyone to know." "What is it?" "The 17 species they claim to have destroyed. We have been studying the evidence they provided. Many of those worlds were not destroyed by weapons." Jung felt his heart beat faster. "What do you mean?" "Some died from diseases that appeared suddenly. Others had environmental disasters that seemed too convenient. A few simply stopped communicating with the galaxy, as if they had chosen to isolate themselves. You think the council lied about destroying them? I think the council allowed them to die slowly, then claimed credit for their destruction to frighten other species." Jung stared at the crystal being. "If this was true, it changed everything. There is more," Haiwan continued. "Since your Captain Kim spoke in the chamber yesterday, we have been monitoring council communications." "They are concerned." "About what?" "About the reaction from other species. 47 different civilizations have begun private discussions about the tribute system. 15 species have requested secret meetings with their neighbors, and 3 species have already announced they will not provide ships or soldiers for the pacification fleet." Jung felt a spark of hope. "Which 3? "The Zephyr Crystals, the Keith warrior clans, and the collective mind." On the other side of the galaxy, Ambassador Ensu Yoon was meeting with representatives from the Keth warrior clans on their fortress world of Keth Prime. The planet was covered with massive stone cities built into mountain ranges. Everything about this world spoke of a people who valued strength and honor. War leader Bonecrusher stood nearly 10 feet tall. His natural armor was scarred from countless battles fought before the council conquered his people 200 years ago. When he spoke, his voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "Human ambassador," he said. "The Keth have waited 2 centuries for someone to challenge council authority. We have paid tribute in metal and blood for too long. Will your people fight alongside humanity?" Yoon asked. Bonecrusher made a sound that might have been laughter. "The Keth do not fight for others, but we will fight for ourselves. And if the council fleet is busy destroying your worlds, they cannot stop us from reclaiming our freedom." Yoon understood. The Keth would not directly help humanity, but they would use the chaos to start their own rebellion. "How many other species feel the same way?" she asked. "More than the council knows," Bonecrusher replied. "The galaxy has been quiet for 3,000 years, but that does not mean it has been peaceful. Many species remember what they lost when they submitted to council rule." He gestured to the stone walls around them, covered with carvings showing Keth warriors in battle. "These walls tell the story of our people before the council came. We were explorers, fighters, builders. Now we mine metals for alien masters and watch our young warriors grow soft from lack of purpose. And you think this is the time to change that? I think your species has reminded us that change is possible. Whether it is the right time? Bonecrusher shrugged his massive shoulders. Time will tell. Back on Earth, Director Bo Young Choi was coordinating humanity's response to the coming war. The command center beneath New York City buzzed with activity. Screens showed data from across human space as colonies prepared their defenses. Dr. So Young Nam rushed into the command center with her tablet clutched in both hands. Her face was flushed with excitement. "Director, you need to see this," she said, activating the main display screen. The screen filled with a map of the galaxy, showing communication networks between different species. Bright lines connected various star systems, pulsing with the flow of information. "What am I looking at?" Choi asked. "This is a real-time display of interspecies communications," Nam replied. 24 hours ago, most species only talked to their immediate neighbors or directly to council stations. Look at it now. The map was alive with connections. Lines of communication crisscrossed the galaxy in patterns that had never existed before. 63 species have begun private discussions about council authority. Nam continued. 22 species have formed new communication networks that bypass council monitoring stations. And this is the most important part. She highlighted a section of the map where multiple species were all connected to each other in a complex web of communication lines. 18 species have begun coordinating their responses to our situation. They are sharing information, discussing strategy, and... Nam paused, hardly believing her own words. They are forming an alliance. Choi stared at the display. An alliance against the council? An alliance for independence. They are calling it the Free Worlds Coalition. On the council station orbiting Kepler 442b, Councilor Prime Vex Thara was meeting with her military commanders in an emergency session. The chamber was smaller than the main council hall, but no less imposing. Holographic displays showed the positions of council fleets throughout the galaxy. General Voidstrike, commander of council forces, was a creature that looked like living shadow with burning red eyes. His report was not what Vexithara wanted to hear. "The pacification fleet is ready to depart for human space," he said. "However, we have encountered some difficulties." "Explain," Vexithara commanded. 3 species have refused to contribute ships to the fleet. The Zephyr crystals claim their vessels need maintenance. The Keth say their warriors are required for border defense. The collective mind has simply stopped responding to our communications. Vexithara's silver eyes flashed with anger. "And you allowed this?" The refusals began appearing within hours of the human declaration. "It appears to be coordinated." "What else?" Vexithara asked, though she was not sure she wanted to know. "Intelligence reports unusual communication activity between multiple species. They are discussing the human situation extensively. Some conversations suggest..." Voidstrike paused. "Some suggest that other species are considering similar actions." Vexithara stood up, her full height casting shadows across the room. "How many species?" "We have identified at least 40 species engaged in suspicious communications. 18 have formed what they call a mutual defense pact. 7 have begun moving their fleets to defensive positions." "This ends now," Vexithara said coldly. "Deploy additional forces to monitor all suspicious species. Any that show signs of rebellion will be added to the pacification list. Ma'am, we may not have enough ships to pacify multiple species simultaneously. Then we make examples of the most dangerous ones, starting with the humans." But even as she gave her orders, Vexithara felt something she had not experienced in centuries: doubt. For 3,000 years, the galaxy had been stable and predictable. Species paid tribute. The council maintained order. Everyone knew their place. Now one small species had changed everything. Their single word of defiance was spreading across the galaxy like a virus, infecting other species with dangerous ideas about freedom and choice. Back on Earth, Captain Kim stood on the observation deck of the orbital defense station, looking out at the stars. Somewhere in that darkness, the largest military force in galactic history was preparing to destroy his people. But Earth was no longer alone. The quantum communication network now connected not just human colonies, but dozens of alien worlds. Species that had not talked to each other in centuries were sharing information, coordinating plans, remembering what it felt like to make their own decisions. "Any regrets?" Director Choi asked, joining him at the window. "No," Kim replied. "Whatever happens next, we chose it freely. We were not ordered. We were not threatened into it. We made our own decision. Even if we lose?" Kim smiled as he watched ships from 3 different alien species take positions alongside human vessels. "Look around you. We have already won something important. We reminded the galaxy that choice exists." In the distance, space began to shimmer as the first Council ships entered the outer edge of the solar system. The pacification fleet had arrived to teach humanity the price of defiance. But they were about to discover that the lesson might go both ways. The Council's pacification fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system like a wall of metal and light. 200 massive ships moved in perfect formation, each one larger than anything humans had ever built. Their hulls glowed with energy shields that could deflect asteroid impacts, their weapons charged with visible power that could crack planets. Fleet Admiral Dongwoo Park stood on the bridge of humanity's flagship, Seoul's Pride. Through the main viewing window, he could see his small fleet of 47 ships spread out among the asteroid belt. They looked like toys compared to the Council Armada approaching them. "Admiral," came the voice of Captain Mi-young Kang from her stealth ship, Ghost of Busan. "All quantum drives are ready. The enemy has never faced ships that can disappear and reappear like ours can." "Good," Park replied into his communicator. "Remember, we are not trying to win a normal battle. We need to survive long enough to prove that the Council can be hurt." On Earth, millions of people watched the approaching fleet through orbital telescopes and quantum feeds. The enemy ships were so large they could be seen even from the planet's surface, like new stars moving across the sky. Dr. So-young Nam worked frantically at her control station in the command bunker beneath New York City. "Director Choi, the quantum communication network is fully active. Every human ship and colony is connected. But more importantly, we now have communication links with 62 alien worlds." Director Bo-young Choi nodded grimly. "Make sure everyone can see what happens here today. If we fall, let the galaxy know we fell fighting." But they were not alone. As the Council fleet moved deeper into the solar system, other ships began appearing at the edge of human space. Crystal vessels from the Zephyr worlds arrived first, their hulls reflecting starlight like giant diamonds. Then came the dark, angular warships of the Keth clans. Ships from dozens of other species followed. On the lead Council vessel Eternal Order, General Voidstrike watched his tactical displays with growing confusion. His burning red eyes flickered as he tried to understand what he was seeing. "General," his aide reported, "we now count over 400 alien vessels in the Sol system. They claim to be observers, but their positioning suggests defensive formations." Voidstrike made a sound like grinding metal. "Observers do not form battle lines." "What species are represented?" 47 different civilizations, sir, including several that refuse to contribute to our fleet. For the first time in 3,000 years, a Council military operation was facing organized resistance from multiple species. Voidstrike had been trained to fight primitive civilizations with crude weapons. He had never planned for a battle against dozens of different alien technologies working together. "No matter," he decided. "We will destroy them all as examples to the galaxy." The battle began when the Council fleet reached the asteroid belt. Admiral Park had positioned his ships among the floating rocks, using them for cover. The enemy approached in their traditional formation, massive ships moving slowly and confidently toward their targets. "All human ships, this is Park," the Admiral announced. "Engage the enemy!" What happened next shocked everyone watching. The human ships did not charge forward like traditional naval vessels. Instead, they seemed to vanish completely. Captain Kang's stealth squadron used their quantum drives to slip between dimensions, appearing behind the Council ships like ghosts. They fired their weapons and disappeared again before the enemy could respond. For the first time in millennia, the Council fleet took damage. 3 massive ships lost power and began drifting. Another had its main weapons destroyed by quantum torpedoes that seemed to come from nowhere. "Impossible!" General Voidstrike roared from his command bridge. "How are they moving through space like that?" His science officer, a creature that looked like a walking tree made of metal, made worried clicking sounds. "Admiral, their ships are using quantum mechanics in ways our sensors cannot track. They are not traveling through normal space. Then adapt our weapons. Modify our targeting systems." But the human ships were already attacking again. This time they came from above and below the Council formation, hitting the massive vessels from angles that should have been impossible in space combat. Engineer Hyun-suo, monitoring the battle from his station on Earth, spoke into the communication network. All ships, remember what we learned about Council tactics. Their weapons are designed to fight in 2 dimensions. They expect enemies to approach from the front or sides. Attack from every direction at once. Admiral Park smiled grimly as he watched his ships dance through space like deadly shadows. You heard the engineer. We fight a 3-dimensional war against 2-dimensional thinking. The human vessels moved like a school of fish, appearing and disappearing in coordinated attacks. They struck the Council ships and vanished before the massive weapons could target them. It was like watching lightning fight mountains, but there were only 47 human ships against 200 Council vessels. Despite their superior tactics, the humans were slowly being overwhelmed. The ship Incheon's Fury was caught by enemy fire and exploded in a ball of plasma. The Daegu's hammer was surrounded and destroyed by 3 Council ships working together. Admiral, Captain Kang reported, her voice tight with strain. We are losing ships faster than we can replace them. How long can we hold out? As long as we have to, Park replied. But he knew they could not win alone. That was when the miracle happened. A new voice came over the communication channels. It belonged to Haewon, the crystal representative Young had met with earlier. This is Zephyr Defense Fleet, she announced, her voice like singing crystal. We are no longer observers. We choose to stand with humanity. 10 crystal ships broke away from the observer group and joined the battle. Their weapons were completely different from human technology, but equally effective. Beams of pure light cut through Council energy shields like they were made of paper. What are you doing? General Voidstrike demanded over the communication channels. The Zephyr worlds are Council members. We were Council tributaries, Haewon replied, her ship blazing with rainbow colors. Today we choose to be free. More ships joined the fight. War leader Bonecrusher led 30 Keth vessels in a direct assault on the Council fleet. The Keth ships were older than human vessels, but they were built like flying fortresses. They rammed into Council ships like living missiles, their armored hulls crushing through enemy defenses. This is rebellion, Voidstrike screamed. All hostile vessels will be destroyed. But his perfect fleet was falling apart. Ships from dozens of species were now fighting against him, each using different weapons, different tactics, different technologies. His crews had been trained to fight one enemy at a time, not handle a chaotic battle involving 50 different civilizations. The gaseous beings called the Nebula People sent ships that seemed to be made of living cloud. They flowed around Council vessels like fog, disrupting their sensors and communications. The collective mind's ships moved in perfect coordination, striking as one organism with 1,000 bodies. Admiral Park could hardly believe what he was seeing. All human vessels, we are no longer fighting alone. On Earth, people watched the battle through quantum feeds and cheered as species after species joined the fight. Dr. Nam was crying as she worked her controls, watching the galaxy wake up after 3,000 years of sleep. It is working, she whispered. They remember what freedom looks like. The tide of battle turned completely when ships from the Council's own fleet began to stop fighting. Crews from species that had been paying tribute for centuries simply powered down their weapons and withdrew from combat. General Voidstrike watched his command falling apart. Ships were abandoning his fleet. Others were turning their weapons on their former allies. The perfect order he had maintained for millennia was crumbling. This ends now, he screamed. He ordered his flagship to target Earth directly. If we cannot control them, we destroy them all. The Eternal Order turned its planet-killing weapons toward the blue and green world where humanity had been born. Energy built up in cannons that could shatter continents. That was when Captain Kim, flying a single-person fighter, did something that shocked everyone watching. He positioned his tiny ship directly between the Council flagship and Earth. This is Captain Dae-ho Kim, he said calmly over all communication channels. The human who told the Council no 4 days ago? If you want to destroy my world, you will have to go through me. For a moment, the entire battle stopped. The sight of one small ship facing a weapon that could destroy planets was too powerful to ignore. Then other ships began moving. One by one, hundreds of vessels from dozens of species formed a protective wall between the Council flagship and Earth. Humans and aliens, former enemies and new friends all standing together. Stand aside, Voidstrike ordered.
This is Council Justice.
The reply came from hundreds of ships at once, spoken in dozens of languages but meaning the same thing in all of them. No. It was the word Captain Kim had used in the council chamber. The word that had started a revolution. Now it was spoken by species across the galaxy, all remembering what it meant to choose their own destiny. General Voidstrike stared at his displays in disbelief. His mighty fleet was beaten, not by superior firepower but by something more powerful than weapons. They were beaten